Ladies and gentlemen, welcome. If you're here, if you're listening, you're ready to step up, to break old habits, to become the kind of storyteller who doesn't just speak, but moves. I'm talking about the difference between telling a story and igniting a fire. Because in this world, stories aren't optional. They are the bridge between you and your audience, you and your legacy. Today, I'm giving you the only 3 ingredients you need to become a better storyteller. Not 10, not 5, just 3, simple but powerful. Because when you strip away the noise, when you commit to mastery, you win when you talk about storytelling. Everything starts and ends with clarity. Not fancy words, not dramatic pauses, not perfectly staged scenes, clarity. Because when you know exactly what you're trying to say, the world feels it. When your message is sharp, your audience doesn't just listen, they lock in. That's what separates a speaker from a storyteller. One talks to fill the air, the other speaks to move hearts. Clarity is not just about choosing the right words, it's about owning your direction. Most people start telling a story before they even understand the why behind it. They chase approval, not impact. They speak to be liked, not to lead. But when you have clarity of vision, you stop chasing attention and start commanding it. Because you know who you are, what you stand for, and where your story is taking people. Every word you say becomes intentional. Every pause carries weight. You're not just sharing a moment. You're sculpting meaning. See, clarity isn't built in noise. It's born in silence. It's the quiet moment before you speak when you ask yourself, why am I telling this story? What's the one thing I want them to feel when I'm done? If you can't answer that, your story is just decoration. But the moment you can, your story becomes a weapon. It cuts through the chaos of average communication. It pierces through distractions. People remember it not because it was long or dramatic, but because it hit home. Think of the greatest storytellers in history. They didn't try to be clever. They tried to be clear. Their message was simple but unforgettable. They didn't say 10 things halfway. They said one thing all the way. Because clarity is power. When you're clear, people trust you. When you're uncertain, people hesitate. Clarity creates confidence both in you and in your listener. It tells your audience, I know where I'm taking you, trust me. And when they trust, they follow. You want to know why some stories fail? Because they wander. They drift from point to point, trying to sound deep but leaving the listener lost. There's no center, no heartbeat. Clarity fixes that. It gives your story an anchor. It's like setting a GPS before you start driving. You might take different roads, but you'll never lose direction. Every example, every emotion, every line of your story must serve the destination. That's how you build momentum that carries your audience all the way to the end. And here's the truth: clarity takes courage, because being clear means cutting away what doesn't serve your message. It means saying no to the parts that sound good but don't fit. It means being ruthless with your purpose. A confused storyteller tries to please everyone. A clear storyteller speaks to the right one. And that's where impact lives, not in the crowd, but in connection. You don't need 1,000 people nodding. You need one person transformed. Clarity also demands honesty. You can't fake it. You can't perform your way into it. You earn it through self-awareness. You have to know what you believe before you can express it. You have to understand your own pain, your own lessons, your own victories. Because your clarity comes from alignment when your story reflects your truth. When you talk about what you know, not what you pretend to know, your message cuts through like light through fog. And that's the moment your storytelling shifts. You stop speaking from your mouth and start speaking from your core. You stop worrying about perfect sentences and start focusing on real connection. You start to realize that clarity isn't just about your story, it's about your energy. When you're clear, your energy is magnetic. People lean in because they can feel that you believe what you're saying. They sense that you're not guessing, you're guiding. So before you tell your next story, take a breath and get clear. What's the message? What's the emotion? What's the action you want them to take after hearing you? Don't move until you can answer those 3 questions with conviction, because when you do, your story will carry force. It won't just inform, it will ignite. Clarity of vision is not about being perfect. It's about being precise. It's not about removing emotion. It's about channeling it. It's not about memorizing lines. It's about living your truth out loud. The clearer your purpose, the stronger your presence. The stronger your presence, the deeper your impact. Every powerful storyteller, every visionary communicator you admire, they all have one thing in common. They know exactly where they're taking you. Their words don't wander. Their message doesn't blur. They speak from conviction, not confusion. And when you master that, when your vision becomes clear, your story becomes unstoppable. Because clarity doesn't just make you a better storyteller, it makes you unforgettable. Every story that lives inside you carries a pulse. It's not made of words, it's made of feeling. Emotion is what turns a simple story into a shared experience. Without emotion, your story is just information. But when you add resonance, when you speak from the heart instead of the script, you stop being a speaker and start becoming a mirror. People see themselves in you. They feel your words because in some way they've lived them too. That's emotional resonance, the invisible bridge between your world and theirs. You can tell the same story 100 different ways, but only the version that carries truth will move people. It's not about acting emotional, it's about being emotionally honest. There's a difference between trying to make people feel something and allowing them to feel something. The first is manipulation, the second is connection. And connection always wins, because when your story makes someone feel seen, heard, or understood, you've already won their heart. The mind follows after. We live in a world obsessed with appearance, how things look, how words sound, how moments are framed. But the world doesn't crave polish, it craves real. Emotion cuts through everything fake. You can hear 1,000 perfect speakers and forget every word, but you'll never forget the one person who made you feel. Because the truth is, people may not remember what you said, but they will always remember how you made them feel. That's not just a quote, it's the core of powerful storytelling. When you speak, don't run from your emotions. Bring them with you, your pain, your loss, your hope. Those are your greatest tools. They are the proof that your story is lived, not borrowed. Every great storyteller bleeds a little when they speak. They don't hide behind perfection. They reveal the cracks, the doubt, the fear, the breakthrough, because it's in those raw edges that people connect. That's where resonance happens. That's where stories stop sounding like lessons and start feeling like life. But understand this, emotional resonance isn't about crying on stage or oversharing your wounds. It's not about dramatizing, it's about humanizing. It's about letting people into your emotional truth without drowning them in it. It's saying, I've been there, and not look at me. It's sharing pain with purpose, not for pity. That's the difference between vulnerability and exposure. Vulnerability is strength. It says, I'm not perfect, but I'm real. Exposure is noise. It screams for attention. One builds connection, the other drains it. When you tell a story, feel it before you say it. Don't rush, let the silence speak. Let your emotions breathe between your words. That's where authenticity lies. That's what gives your voice texture, because when your tone carries emotion, your story doesn't just hit the ear, it hits the heart. The tremble in your voice, the pause after a sentence, the look in your eyes, these are all notes in the symphony of connection. They say more than your words ever could. Emotion also builds memory. Think about it. The moments you remember most in life are not the most logical ones, they're the most emotional ones. The laughter, the heartbreak, the victory, the failure, those are the chapters that shaped you. So when you tell your story, pull from those moments. Let people feel what you felt when you stood at the edge of giving up, when you broke through, when you realized your purpose. Don't just tell them what happened, show them how it felt. And don't be afraid to make your audience feel uncomfortable. Sometimes emotional resonance means taking people into the darkness before showing them the light. It's easy to inspire when everything's polished, but real power lies in honesty. The kind that makes people quiet, the kind that makes them rethink their own story. Because your vulnerability gives them permission to face theirs. When your story holds truth, it holds healing. Remember, people don't come to hear your story, they come to find themselves inside your story. That's why emotional resonance is not about you, it's about them. You're not the hero, you're the guide, you're not performing, you're connecting. The emotion you release becomes the emotion they receive. So speak from a place of love, not fear, from service, not ego. Because the energy behind your words matters more than the words themselves. When you reach that place where your emotion aligns with your purpose, you'll feel it, the room changes, the silence deepens. Eyes lock in, hearts open. That's not coincidence, that's resonance. That's the moment you stop trying to inspire and start transforming, because true emotional storytelling doesn't entertain, it awaken. So the next time you share your message, don't hide your feelings behind professionalism. Don't dilute your truth to sound perfect. Speak with honesty, speak with warmth, speak with the courage to be seen. Because emotion is not weakness, it's the language of humanity. And when your story speaks that language fluently, you don't just tell stories anymore. You build legacies. Your voice is your fingerprint. Nobody else has it. Nobody else can replicate it, no matter how hard they try. And yet, most people spend their lives trying to sound like someone else, smoother, louder, safer, more professional. They dilute their truth until it's acceptable, and in that process, they lose the one thing that makes them unforgettable: authenticity. Your authentic voice isn't just the sound of your words, it's the rhythm of your soul. It's the energy that rises when you stop performing and start being. Most people think speaking with an authentic voice means being casual or unscripted. It's not. Authenticity doesn't mean unprepared, it means aligned. It means your words, your tone, and your intention are moving in the same direction. When you speak with your real voice, people can feel it. They don't have to guess if you believe what you're saying, they can sense it. Because the truth has a vibration that cannot be faked. You can polish your sentences all day, but if you don't mean it, your audience will know. Your authentic voice comes from experience, from the fire you've walked through, the lessons you've learned, the pain you've survived. You can't borrow that, you can't imitate it, you have to live it. That's why every storyteller sounds different when they're honest. The power of your story doesn't come from how perfectly you deliver it, it comes from how truthfully you share it. People don't connect to perfect, they connect to real. And here's the part most people miss. Finding your authentic voice is not about discovering something new. It's about removing everything false. The real you has always been there, buried under doubt, fear, comparison, and pressure to fit in. Somewhere along the way, someone told you your voice wasn't enough, too raw, too soft, too different. And you believed them, but the moment you decide that your truth matters more than approval, that's the moment your real voice begins to rise. Authenticity is not loud, it's powerful. It's not about trying to dominate the room, it's about commanding presence through truth. When you speak with authenticity, people don't just hear your words, they feel your conviction. They see that you've lived what you're saying. They can sense that your lessons aren't secondhand. You didn't Google this wisdom, you earned it. And that's what makes people trust you, because people trust real. But here's the catch: being authentic means being willing to stand alone sometimes. It means some people won't get you, and that's okay. Your voice isn't supposed to be for everyone. When you try to please everyone, you water down your message until it means nothing. Authentic voices divide before they unite. They challenge, they confront. They wake people up, and that's why they leave a mark. When you speak, speak as if you're talking to one person who truly needs to hear it. Not to impress, not to perform, but to serve. That's where authenticity lies, in service. Because when your intention is to help, not to be liked, your voice gains gravity. It's not about how perfect you sound, it's about how much you care. The audience feels that difference instantly. They know when you're performing, and they know when you're pouring. Your authentic voice also lives in your imperfections. The pauses, the mistakes, the unscripted moments, that's where your humanity shines through. Don't edit that out, that's what makes you real. When you stumble, laugh. When you forget, breathe. When you feel something, show it. People are starving for speakers who don't hide behind perfection. They want truth with texture. They want emotion with meaning, and when you give them that, you become unforgettable. But authenticity isn't just about emotion, it's about consistency. It's about showing up the same way on stage, on camera, and off the mic, because your voice isn't what you say once, it's what you live every day. You can't preach confidence and live in fear. You can't talk about growth and stay comfortable. Your life must echo your message. That's where authenticity earns its respect, not through words, but through alignment. To build an authentic voice, you have to stop comparing your volume to someone else's. Some voices shake the room, others heal it. Some lead with power, others lead with peace. You don't need to change your tone to make impact. You just need to own it, because when you finally do, the right people will find you, the ones who are waiting for your energy, your rhythm, your story. And that's the point: your story is your power. Nobody can argue with your truth. They can disagree with your opinions, but they can't deny your experience. Speak from that place. Speak from the lessons that cost you something. Speak from the moments that broke you and built you. That's your authority. That's your authenticity. So when you tell your next story, drop the mask. Stop trying to sound impressive. Speak as the person who's lived it, not as the person who's rehearsed it. Don't worry about sounding right, focus on being real. Because when you show up as yourself, you don't just tell stories, you change people. Your words stop being noise and start being truth. And truth spoken with conviction and heart is the loudest voice in any room. Every story that moves people has one thing in common: it flows. It doesn't stumble, it doesn't rush, and it doesn't wander. It pulls you in one word at a time and takes you somewhere you didn't expect to go but needed to be. That's structure and flow, the hidden backbone of every powerful storyteller. You can have emotion, authenticity, and purpose, but if your story doesn't move right, it loses its power. Because words are like energy, they need direction. Without structure, your energy scatters. With it, you strike straight to the heart. Think about your favorite story, a movie, a book, a speech that stayed with you long after it ended. What made it unforgettable wasn't just what was said, but how it was delivered. There was rhythm, there was timing, there was a sense of build, tension, release, and resolution. That's what flow does. It keeps your listener emotionally engaged and mentally invested. Structure is the map, flow is the journey. Without both, your story is just noise. Structure isn't about being robotic, it's about being intentional. Every story needs an anchor, a beginning that hooks, a middle that deepens, and an end that lands. The opening should grab attention instantly. It's your first impression, and people decide within seconds if they'll keep listening. You don't start slow, you start strong. A bold question, a vivid scene, a powerful statement, something that makes your audience lean in. You light the match first, then you build the fire. Once you've captured attention, the middle is where you lead. This is where the story breathes. You bring people into the struggle, the process, the conflict, the turning point. Flow is about guiding emotions from curiosity to tension, from tension to realization, from realization to inspiration. Each line should feed the next like a heartbeat. Too slow and you lose energy, too fast and you lose connection. The magic happens in balance. You don't just tell them what happened, you walk them through it. You make them feel each step, each decision, each shift. That's flow, emotional movement, not just verbal momentum. And when you reach the end, that's where you land. A story without impact is a plane that never touches down. Your ending must deliver clarity, emotion, and direction. You don't just finish speaking, you leave something echoing in their mind, a powerful line, a truth, a call to rise, because endings aren't just conclusions, they're conversions. You want your audience to walk away different than they were when you started. That's how you know your structure worked. Flow isn't only about words, it's also about silence. The pauses between sentences, the breaths you take, the timing of your delivery, they all matter. Flow is rhythm, and rhythm creates emotion. You can say the most powerful line in the world, but if you rush it, it loses weight. Silence gives words power. It gives the audience time to feel. When you learn to use pacing, when to slow down, when to push forward, you start speaking like music. Every note hits where it should. Every word carries purpose, but don't confuse structure with rigidity. The best storytellers know when to bend the rules. They understand that structure is a guide, not a cage. Once you master the pattern, you earn the right to play with it. You might start with the ending. You might reveal the lesson first. You might flip time itself, but every change must serve the story, not distract from it. Creativity without structure is chaos. Structure without flow is lifeless. You need both to create art that breathes. Flow also depends on emotional transitions. Every story carries different shades: fear, doubt, hope, victory. The flow lies in how you move between those emotions. You can't jump from pain to triumph without taking people through the middle, the moment of doubt, the decision to fight, the reason to rise. That's what makes stories real. Flow isn't just about talking, it's about feeling through the movement. When your emotions follow the structure, your story becomes alive. Every time you tell a story, ask yourself, where am I taking them? What do I want them to feel right now? If you can answer that, you'll find your flow. It's not about memorizing lines, it's about understanding the heartbeat of your story. When you feel it, you guide it naturally. You know when to raise your voice, when to whisper, when to pause. That's the mastery of flow. It looks effortless, but it's built on discipline. The truth is, your story deserves order. It deserves flow. Because a powerful message without structure is like lightning without direction, bright, but gone too soon. When you give it shape, you turn that flash into fire. People remember stories not because they were loud, but because they were clear, connected, and complete. So when you speak, don't just aim to tell a story, craft an experience. Build it with intention, guide it with rhythm, close it with impact, let every word lead somewhere, because when your story has structure, it makes sense. When it has flow, it moves souls, and when you master both, you don't just speak, you orchestrate transformation. That's how storytellers become unforgettable. A story without engagement is like a song without sound. You can have the perfect message, the strongest delivery, the most emotional truth, but if you don't pull people in, it all fades into the background. Engagement is not about tricks or techniques, it's about connection. It's about making your audience feel like they're inside the story, not just watching from the outside. You don't talk at them, you talk with them. You make them part of the moment, because when your story feels personal, it becomes unforgettable. Engagement begins before you even open your mouth. It starts with energy. The energy you bring sets the tone for how your message will be received. If you walk in halfway alive, your story dies before it starts. But when you step in with presence, with intention, focus, and conviction, people feel that. They sense that you're not just delivering words, you're delivering something that matters. The first few seconds decide everything. Either you wake the room or you lose it. So from the very beginning, lock eyes, breathe deep, and let your presence speak before your voice does. True engagement happens when your audience feels seen. People don't want to just hear your story, they want to find themselves inside it. They want to feel like you understand them, their fears, their hopes, their struggles. So as you speak, you build bridges. You use language that reflects their world. You ask questions that stir reflection. You give them moments to nod, to laugh, to pause. That's how connection is built, not through performance, but through relatability. When people realize you're not speaking above them, you're speaking to them, that's when they lean in. Engagement isn't noise, it's exchange. It's not about keeping people busy, it's about keeping them emotionally invested. When you tell a story, paint pictures. Let them see what you saw, feel what you felt. Use details that awaken the senses. Describe the sound of the room, the weight in your chest, the moment everything changed. Make it real. When your audience can visualize your experience, they don't just listen, they live it with you. That's what transforms attention into impact. But here's the truth: engagement without direction means nothing. You can captivate a room and still change nothing if you don't give people a reason to act. That's where the call to action comes in. Every powerful story ends with purpose. It's not enough to make people feel, you must move them towards something. A decision, a shift, a realization, an action, because emotion without motion fades. Your job as a storyteller isn't just to inspire, it's to ignite. A strong call to action doesn't beg, it invites. It doesn't demand obedience, it sparks ownership. It's not about saying, do this. It's about showing people why they want to. You give them a reason to rise. You remind them of their own potential, their own strength, their own choice. When you finish your story, your audience should not just think, that was powerful. They should think, I need to do something about this. That's how transformation begins, with conviction that moves from your voice into their life. To make your call to action powerful, it has to come from truth. You can't just tell people what to do, you have to show them what's possible. Share the cost of staying the same. Paint the picture of what happens when they act. Let them feel the difference between regret and progress. Make the action emotional, not mechanical. Because people don't change through logic, they change through feeling. The moment your audience connects emotion with possibility, they move. And here's something most speakers forget: engagement doesn't end when you stop talking. It continues in how you close. The final seconds of your story are sacred. That's when your audience decides whether to remember or forget. So close with power, close with conviction. Leave them with one truth that rings louder than applause. One sentence that follows them home. One call that reminds them to rise higher. Your ending is not the finish line, it's the ignition point. That's where the story leaves you and starts living in them. Engagement is about making people care. The call to action is about making them commit. You can light a spark in the first, but you build fire in the second. Together, they turn storytelling into transformation. Without engagement, people won't listen. Without a call to action, they won't move. You need both to create impact that lasts. So when you speak next, don't just think about what you want to say. Think about what you want them to feel. Think about what you want them to do. Every line, every pause, every story should lead toward that. Make your audience feel alive in the moment and then give them a reason to stay alive after it. That's the essence of real storytelling. It's not about applause, it's about awakening. It's not about likes or views, it's about change, because at the end of the day, engagement captures attention, but a call to action captures destiny. Your story might inspire them tonight, but your call might transform their tomorrow. That's your mission, not just to tell stories that sound good, but to deliver messages that do good, to make them feel something real and then do something great. That's not communication, that's leadership. That's legacy. So here's your challenge. Take these 3 ingredients, vision, emotion, voice, and structure, and apply them right now. In the next 24 hours, commit to telling one story with them. Share it. Watch what happens when you align your message with power and purpose. Remember, you are not just a storyteller, you are a legacy builder. Your voice matters, your story matters. Let's unleash it together. Thank you for being here. Go forward, tell your story, make it count.